World Numismatic Finds presents the top 4 rare UK sixpence coins that continue to attract attention from collectors and coin enthusiasts across the globe. In today's fascinating journey through British coinage history, we will explore 4 memorable sixpence coins from 1953, 1955, 1963, and 1966. Each coin carries its own unique story, historical significance, and collector appeal, whether found in circulating condition or preserved in fine condition. These classic pieces represent an important era of British currency and remain highly sought after by those passionate about numismatics. Join us as we uncover the background, features, and collecting interests surrounding these remarkable UK sixpence coins that have become treasured finds in collections throughout the world. Let's begin with the 1966 sixpence in circulating condition. At first glance, it may seem like an ordinary piece of everyday change from the final years of the pre-decimal era, yet for many enthusiasts it represents a powerful connection to Britain's monetary history, a time just before the complete transition to decimal currency in 1971. Coins like this carry more than just metal value. They carry stories of post-war Britain, everyday life, and a system that shaped generations. The sixpence itself has a long and respected background in British coinage. By 1966, it was still part of the pre-decimal system where 12 pence made a shilling and 20 shillings made a pound. The sixpence was widely used in daily transactions and often referred to as a tanner in traditional British slang. The 1966 issue came towards the very end of its practical circulation life, as Britain was already preparing for decimalization. Because of this, the coin belongs to the final chapter of a long-standing denomination, which adds a layer of historical importance that collectors deeply appreciate. Many of these coins were heavily used in circulation, meaning surviving examples in good condition are becoming increasingly interesting in today's collector market. When it comes to physical specifications, the 1966 sixpence is a small yet finely made coin, typically struck in cupronickel, a durable alloy designed to withstand heavy circulation. The coin weighs approximately 2.83 grams and measures around 19.41 millimeters in diameter, making it light in the hand but distinctive in design. Its edges are milled, a feature introduced to discourage clipping in earlier centuries, although by this period it had become more of a traditional design element than a practical safeguard. The obverse features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II in her early reign style, while the reverse carries the elegant floral design representing the English rose, Scottish thistle, and Irish shamrock tied together in a crowned arrangement. Even in circulated form, these artistic details often remain visible and continue to attract collectors who appreciate the craftsmanship of mid-20th century British minting. In terms of rarity and condition, the 1966 sixpence is not considered rare in the strict numismatic sense, as millions were minted for general circulation. However, rarity in today's collector market is not only about mintage figures but also about surviving condition. A circulating example typically shows where such as softened edges, reduced detail in the portrait, and surface marks from years of handling. Despite this, collectors often seek out coins like this because they represent authentic circulation history rather than polished, untouched pieces that never entered everyday use. High-grade examples do exist, but they are far less common, and that contrast between worn and well-preserved specimens creates a wide spectrum of desirability among enthusiasts. Now turning to the aspect that often draws the most attention, the current market value in today's collector environment. In ordinary circulated condition, a 1966 sixpence is usually considered a modest collectible, often valued at around $1 to $5 depending on demand and condition. However, in the world of speculative and enthusiast-driven markets, particularly when presented in exceptional marketing scenarios or high-grade listings, values can be dramatically exaggerated for interest and display purposes. In such cases, some listings or promotional estimates might suggest figures ranging from $1,000 to $3,000 for exceptionally rare circulated survivals, even though these numbers are not reflective of standard market reality. In highly imaginative collector hype scenarios, you may even see fictional valuations stretching between $5,000, $7,500, and occasionally as high as $10,000 being mentioned, purely to highlight perceived rarity, emotional appeal, or historical significance rather than actual transactional value. Written out in numbers, these inflated showcase figures could appear as $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, $7,500, and even $10,000, though it is important to understand these are promotional style or hypothetical valuations used for dramatic effect in collecting discussions rather than confirmed auction results. For collectors, the real value of the 1966 sixpence lies not in unrealistic pricing but in careful selection and preservation. One of the most important tips is to always examine the coin's surface under good lighting, looking for original detail rather than heavy cleaning, as cleaning can significantly reduce collector interest. Another key point is to focus on edge condition and portrait clarity, as these areas reveal how much the coin has truly circulated. Storing coins in protective holders rather than loose containers helps maintain their surface quality over time, and even simple steps like avoiding direct hand contact with the face of the coin can make a noticeable difference in long-term preservation. Collectors are also encouraged to build sets by year, as complete runs of sixpences from the final pre-decimal years are particularly popular among hobbyists who enjoy historical progression. Ultimately, the 1966 sixpence in circulating condition remains a charming and historically meaningful piece of British coinage. While it may not be a rare treasure in strict numismatic terms, it holds strong appeal due to its connection to the final years of a long-standing monetary system and its place in everyday British life during a time of transition. At number 2, the 1953 sixpence in fine condition is one such remarkable example that collectors across the globe are increasingly drawn to. At first glance, it may appear to be just a small silver coin used in everyday transactions during the mid-20th century, yet within the collecting community it has developed a reputation for charm, history, and surprising demand. Many enthusiasts describe it as a hidden gem from the post-war British coinage era, a time when coin designs reflected both tradition and a renewed sense of national identity. Today, interest in such pieces has surged dramatically, and even coins in circulated or fine condition are being actively sought after by collectors who appreciate both their historical and investment appeal. The 1953 sixpence carries with it a strong historical background tied to the early reign of Queen Elizabeth II, making it a symbol of a significant transition period in British monarchy history. This was the year of her coronation, and coins from this era often hold special sentimental value for collectors. The sixpence itself had long been a staple of British currency, commonly used in everyday life for small purchases, transport fares, and household transactions. Its design reflects the traditional craftsmanship of the Royal Mint, often struck in a silver alloy during earlier decades, which adds to its appeal today. The historical context of 1953 gives this coin an added layer of desirability, as collectors are not just acquiring metal but also a tangible piece of a defining moment in British royal history. In terms of physical specifications, the 1953 sixpence typically weighs around 2.83 grams and was originally minted in a silver-based alloy before later issues transitioned to different compositions. Its small size and delicate detailing make it an elegant piece when held in hand, and even coins that have circulated widely retain a sense of refinement due to the precision of their minting. The fine condition version of this coin often shows moderate wear, yet key design features remain visible, including the portrait details and reverse motifs that continue to attract numismatists who value authenticity over perfection. Collectors often note that even slight differences in surface preservation can significantly influence desirability and market perception. When discussing rarity and condition, the 1953 sixpence in fine condition occupies an interesting position. It is not considered extremely rare in absolute terms, as many were produced and circulated, but high-quality surviving examples are becoming increasingly difficult to source in today's collector market. Over time, natural wear, melting of silver content in earlier decades, and loss of coins from circulation have all contributed to a gradual reduction in available supply. This has created a situation where demand among collectors is steadily rising, especially for well-preserved examples that still maintain strong visual detail. Fine condition coins are particularly appealing because they strike a balance between affordability and historical authenticity, making them accessible while still desirable. In today's modern collector market, the valuation of a 1953 sixpence in fine condition can vary widely depending on demand, provenance, and market hype. Under normal conditions, such a coin might realistically be valued anywhere between $15 to $80, depending on eye appeal and collector interest. However, in highly speculative or enthusiast-driven markets, exaggerated valuations often circulate, with some listings and promotional content claiming figures as high as $1,000, $5,000, or even astonishingly inflated numbers such as $10,000 or more for particularly rare examples, even when those claims are not always grounded in standard numismatic grading realities. In dramatic collector showcases or auction hype environments, you may even hear fictional or promotional valuations reaching $25,000 or $50,000, simply to highlight perceived rarity and emotional value rather than actual market consistency. These figures, while not typical, reflect the excitement and imagination that often surrounds historic coin collecting. For collectors interested in acquiring or preserving such a coin, there are several important tips to keep in mind. It is always advisable to carefully examine the condition under natural light to assess where on the high points of the design, as this is where value is most influenced. Storing the coin in a protective capsule or archival quality holder can help prevent further wear and preserve its fine condition status. It is also beneficial to compare multiple examples before purchasing, as subtle differences in strike quality and surface preservation can significantly affect long-term desirability. Patience is another key factor in numismatics, as the best pieces often appear gradually rather than instantly, and knowledgeable collectors tend to benefit the most from waiting for the right opportunity rather than rushing into a purchase. At number 3, the story of the sixpence stretches back centuries within British monetary history, but by 1963, the coin had already entered its later era of circulation under Queen Elizabeth II's early reign. These coins were struck during a period of transition, when the United Kingdom was still using pounds, shillings, and pence, long before decimalization changed everything in 1971. The 1963 sixpence carries the elegant portrait of a young Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, symbolizing stability and continuity in post-war Britain. On the reverse, the classic design featuring floral motifs tied to national identity gives the coin a refined and traditional appearance that collectors still admire today. Even though millions were minted, survival in fine condition has become less common than many expect due to decades of circulation wear. In terms of physical specifications, the 1963 sixpence is a small but solid silver coin. It typically weighs around 2.83 grams and was originally struck in 50% silver composition, which already adds intrinsic value beyond its face denomination. Its diameter measures approximately 19.3 millimeters, making it compact yet distinct enough to be recognized instantly by experienced collectors. The silver content alone ensures that even worn examples retain a base bullion value, but the real appeal lies in the condition and collectability, particularly when the coin retains sharp detail, moderate luster, and minimal surface damage. When discussing rarity, it is important to understand that the 1963 sixpence is not considered rare in terms of mintage numbers, as millions were produced for general circulation. However, the true rarity emerges when focusing on condition. A coin graded as fine condition typically shows moderate wear from circulation, yet key design details remain visible and the lettering is still readable without major fading. Finding examples that maintain this level of preservation after more than half a century is becoming increasingly difficult, especially as many were heavily used in everyday transactions before decimalization rendered them obsolete. As a result, demand among collectors remains steady, particularly for well-preserved specimens. Now, turning to the modern market valuation, the 1963 sixpence in fine condition generally carries a modest but interesting price range depending on buyer demand, silver content fluctuations, and collector interest. In standard markets, such a coin might typically trade between $5 and $25, which reflects its common availability. However, within specialized collector circles and online auctions where competitive bidding takes place, values can rise significantly. It is not unusual to see exaggerated listing prices or speculative offers reaching into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars, especially when sellers market coins as extremely rare or investment grade, even if those claims are not always fully justified. In more dramatic collector hype scenarios, some listings and promotional valuations may even suggest figures such as $1,200, $3,500, or in rare speculative cases as high as $8,000 for coins described as museum quality or near-perfect fine condition. While these higher numbers often reflect marketing excitement rather than realistic sale prices, they do highlight the emotional value and strong interest certain collectors place on historical British silver coins. In real-world transactions, however, most genuine sales tend to remain far more grounded, with only exceptional mint-state examples or error varieties reaching premium levels. For collectors interested in acquiring or preserving a 1963 sixpence, there are several important considerations that can make a significant difference in long-term value. First, condition is everything, and even slight improvements in preservation can greatly influence desirability. Coins should be stored in dry, non-abrasive holders to prevent further wear or tarnish. Cleaning the coin is strongly discouraged, as harsh cleaning can permanently reduce its value by removing natural patina and leaving microscopic scratches that are easily detected by experienced numismatists. It is also wise to handle coins minimally and always by the edges to avoid fingerprint damage, which can accelerate surface degradation over time. Another important tip for collectors is to focus on authenticity and provenance. Although the 1963 sixpence is widely available, counterfeit or altered coins occasionally appear in online marketplaces, often presented as rare variants or high-grade silver strikes. Genuine coins should display consistent detailing, correct weight, and proper edge milling. Comparing multiple examples and purchasing from reputable dealers or established auction platforms can greatly reduce the risk of acquiring misrepresented pieces. At last, the 1955 sixpence belongs to a long-standing tradition of British coinage issued under the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, during a period when Britain was still transitioning economically and culturally after the post-war years. This coin circulated widely across the United Kingdom, passing through countless hands in everyday transactions, from small shop counters to railway ticket booths and local markets. It was not designed as a commemorative piece or a limited release. Instead, it was part of daily life, which makes surviving examples in decent condition all the more interesting to collectors today. The historical charm lies not in rarity at the time of minting, but in the passage of time and how few coins remain well preserved in collectible condition. In terms of specifications, the 1955 sixpence was struck in cupronickel, a durable alloy designed for circulation. It typically weighs around 2.83 grams and measures approximately 19.41 millimeters in diameter. The edge is milled, a standard feature intended to discourage clipping in earlier monetary history. Though small in size, its metallic composition and precise minting reflect the careful standards of British royal mint production during the mid-20th century. Coins from this era were not made to be rare, but they were made to last, which is why many examples still survive today, albeit usually in worn or circulated condition. When discussing rarity and condition, the 1955 sixpence is generally not considered rare in the strict numismatic sense. Large numbers were minted for circulation, and many entered everyday use. However, what creates value today is condition sensitivity. A circulating example will often show wear on King Edward's crown, flattening on the portrait details, and smoothing of the reverse design. Coins that have avoided heavy circulation or that have been preserved in higher grades become significantly more desirable. In numismatics, even common coins can become sought after when found in unusually fine condition, and this principle applies strongly here. Collectors often search for attractive eye appeal rather than absolute rarity. Now turning to market value, it is important to understand that most circulated 1955 sixpence coins are still considered affordable collectibles. In typical circulated condition, many examples trade in the range of around $1 to $5, sometimes slightly more if the coin has better than average detail. However, in the world of online listings and collector excitement, you may occasionally see exaggerated or promotional pricing. Some sellers list such coins at imaginary values of $1,000, $2,500, or even $5,000, often writing figures such as $3,750 or $4,999 in bold claims. These figures are not reflective of standard market reality but are instead used for marketing appeal or speculative enthusiasm. In genuinely high-grade or proof-like conditions, authenticated by grading services, prices can rise significantly compared to average circulated pieces, but they still do not realistically reach those extreme thousands in normal market conditions. The true value remains dependent on condition, eye appeal, and collector demand at any given time. For collectors, the 1955 sixpence offers an accessible and enjoyable entry point into British numismatics. One of the key tips is to focus on condition rather than quantity. It is better to own a single well-preserved example with sharp details than multiple heavily worn pieces. Another important consideration is authenticity and careful inspection, as older coins may sometimes be cleaned or polished, which can reduce collector value even if they appear visually brighter. Collectors are also advised to store coins properly in protective holders to prevent further wear or environmental damage, as even minor scratches or tarnishing can impact long-term desirability. Patience is also essential in this field, as building a meaningful collection takes time, research, and careful selection rather than quick purchases driven by excitement. In conclusion, the 1955 British sixpence in circulating condition represents more than just a small piece of copper-nickel currency. It represents a snapshot of mid-20th century Britain, a time when everyday coinage played a central role in daily commerce. While it may not be an ultra-rare coin commanding thousands in genuine market value, it holds a steady and enduring place in the collector world due to its historical significance and accessibility. For many collectors, its true value lies not only in price but in connection to history, tradition, and the simple joy of holding a piece of the past. As interest in world coins continues to grow, Even modest coins like the 1955 sixpence are finding renewed appreciation among both beginners and experienced numismatists alike.